All right, I'm gonna set the camera up a little different this time. Man, I feel weird looking at my own face. All right, so I'm on my lunch break, and tonight waiting to clock into work, I saw that the UFC and USADA are gonna terminate their relationship January 1st, 2024. So 3 months away. USADA will no longer be the testing company for the UFC and performance enhancing drugs and other substances that are barred from competition. And a lot of people are relating this directly to Conor, including USADA themselves, literally putting in the press statement that everything was going great until it came into the UFC wanting to give Conor an exemption. And USADA was like, no, you shouldn't give an exemption to this guy. If you're not aware, the exemption being to compete in the UFC, you have to be in the testing pool of USADA for 6 months and get tested twice before you're eligible to compete. That is when you are re-entering the pool as compared to when you're entering it for the first time. There's different reasons. Different approaches. Like if you were to just sign with the UFC today, it's different than where Conor stepped away. He removed himself from the pool, probably to take substances that are considered performance enhancing, but he had literally snapped his ankle in half and as part of the rehab recovery process. But what I think USADA is saying, and the reason why they wouldn't give an exemption, he waited longer after the recovery process and whatever, and he got to see benefits of performance-enhancing drugs. So you would want to, I get it. What's odd to me, though, is how the UFC is literally going to trash this all over one guy. The UFC is literally going to do away with this agency that, I don't know, it seems, I mean, I get there's mistakes and stuff, but fuck. In the local scene and everything else, everyone's on fucking steroids. I know people in my personal life on fucking steroids. I know people taking steroids that it's not even making a difference in their fucking performance. And they're not tested. This is very fucking dangerous and it's not good for the athletes. And Mark Hunt had every fucking right to sue the UFC whenever they gave Lesnar an exemption and then he popped positive. Like, you endangered his welfare and put him in a dangerous situation and created an unlevel playing field. And the fans just sit back and they're like, oh, whatever. If anything comes out of this, surely the UFC has enough common sense that they're going to get the most strictest, hardcore substitution for USADA that they can find. Otherwise, this is going to be a slippery slope falling downhill quick because of the business atmosphere right now. So Bellator doesn't know what's going on with them. Like, Bellator may or may not continue. Literally no one knows. They just had 300 and that might have been their last event. They're literally trying to be, they're a subsidiary, so their parent company is deciding what they want to do with them. Then we got ONE and PFL. I've been watching ONE every Friday morning when I get home. It's on YouTube for free, and I think it might be on Prime for free, but it's definitely on YouTube for free. I get on and it's live, and 4 hours or more of fights nonstop. Like, it's awesome. ONE has basically conquered the freaking world outside of America. And it's like the UFC is so caught up in America that they're just going to kill themselves. Because we're going to put it all on making money. What's Conor got? Like 2 or 3 fights left? And we're going to completely change everything just so he can fight. And he hasn't looked good in his last performances. Like, I don't know. Man, I don't know. I think it's a poor decision. I think when people get in a position of success or authority, sometimes it goes through their head and they're not as strict as they were, or they think they don't have to adapt anymore. And I feel like a lot of that's happened with the UFC and Dana. You look at Francis, he completely mocked and disrespected Francis when he left, and then Francis went and did exactly what he wanted to do and got way more money than he ever has from the UFC. Like, I literally have peers that talk about how much money the UFC people make, and then I show them actual things after an event. They still continue to think these UFC people are millionaires, Even though every event we talk about it, and it's like it just doesn't sink into their head. They just, I don't know. And it seems like when Dana has been such an authority so long, he feels like everyone's just going to go with what he says. He's still doing that, and now it's biting him in the ass. Like, it's not, I just feel like the PFL is honestly going to take over in the next 5 to 10 years, because a big success in the UFC that we don't talk about is their chase towards regulation. We do talk about it. When Dana took over, he wanted to be regulated. When Dana and Lorenzo and all, they chased towards regulation where the prior people didn't want to be regulated. They wanted to be able to do whatever they want. The regulation gave it authenticity. PFL, by adding, like, they're trying to keep track of the strikes, have live scoring going on. They're adding a lot of things that makes it more professional. Like when we watch the NFL and we see that yellow for the first down marker, but it's not really there. The way that they're approaching as a season, I don't know if I'm a fan of that or not, but I see the idea and the concept behind it, and I'm not against it. And then they're making all the moves with people. One, not being just MMA, like they're willing to do different things, but they're signing the right people. They're signing what UFC can't afford. And this is PFL, so I don't know. I guess I just wanted to talk about that. I don't even know if I had a final thought. I think it's poor decision of the UFC to completely change, unless they're going to a stricter regimen. It is horrible decision to axe the deal with USADA for the sake of Conor getting to fight. That's absolutely atrocious, and we might look back on this in 10 years and be like, that's the decision that caused the UFC to go bankrupt. And before anyone, I feel like I'm getting accustomed to how people react. UFC's not going to go bankrupt. You have no idea. If the UFC is not going to go bankrupt, why has there been a debate about how they can pay the fighters for the last 20 years? Why has there been such an effort by management to talk about you have to invest in the company and marketing and all of this and all of that, and fighters aren't getting paid? Where's that money at then? It absolutely can happen, and it can happen like that. One bad event, you go under. It's that easy. Look at Triller. Yeah, that's all I got. I want to enjoy the rest of my break.